Some women don't just survive storms, they walk through them untouched. Not because they're lucky, not because they're fearless, but because they're covered by the unseen. You've seen her, the woman who moves quietly, but shifts the atmosphere when she enters a room. The one who doesn't beg for attention, yet carries a presence you can't ignore. She's not flashy, she's not loud, but there is something on her life that darkness respects and heaven defends. She's covered, not by fame, not by charm, but by divine assignment. A protection no eye can see, but every demon can feel. And when you meet a woman like that, you're not just meeting her. You're colliding with everything that's been sent to guard her. This isn't superstition. This is spiritual reality. Some women have angels assigned to them. Some carry callings that make hell nervous. And the reason the attacks didn't destroy her is because they never even reached her. She's not just strong, she's shielded. And today, we're revealing how you'll know. Because when a woman is covered by the unseen, there are always signs, not to impress, but to warn. These are 8 supernatural signs a woman is protected by God. She's not missing, she's not forgotten, she's been deliberately concealed. Some women aren't overlooked, they're insulated by God. While others are promoted by applause, she is positioned by silence. Not because she lacks value, but because what she carries can't be mishandled. Heaven doesn't reveal its treasures all at once, and she is one of them, refined in secret, preserved in private. She used to question the quiet seasons. When doors closed, calls stopped, and platforms passed her by. But now she sees clearly. Those were not delays. They were divine defenses. Because what grows in caves is often what shakes kingdoms. She no longer needs to be seen to feel secure. She's been protected from the counterfeit, shielded from premature exposure, and separated from voices that would have poisoned her path. Now, she walks without rushing, waits without doubting, moves without explaining, because she understands. When you are covered by the unseen, timing is not your enemy. It's your armor. She's not standing still. She's being staged. And when heaven opens the curtain, it won't be a rise. It will be a reveal. She walks in quietly, but her awareness arrives before she does. She doesn't scan the room. She feels it. Not the decor, not the faces, but the undercurrent. The way the air shifts when something's off. The way her skin tightens even when everyone else is smiling. It's not paranoia. It's not fear. It's what life trained into her. The kind of knowing that comes after you've trusted the wrong people and paid for it in silence. She used to dismiss the feeling, that dull ache in her stomach when someone looked too perfect, that tension behind her eyes when words didn't match energy. She'd say, "Maybe I'm being too sensitive," and so she stayed. She listened, she gave, until the patterns repeated, and the cost got too high. Now, she doesn't wait for proof. She trusts the absence of peace. She leaves when things feel loud on the inside, even if everything looks fine on the outside. She's learned that some dangers don't raise their voice. They whisper, they smile, they make you question your own clarity. And that's how they get in. But not with her. Not anymore. She pays attention to what people avoid saying. She watches how they react to silence. And when someone's energy walks ahead of their words, she listens to that first. Some people say she's hard to reach. But the truth is, She's hard to fool. She doesn't expose anyone. She just quietly stops giving them access. She pulls back the moment her body says, something's not right. And if she can't pray it off, she doesn't keep it near. She's not here to prove her instincts to anyone. She doesn't stay to see how it plays out. She doesn't write essays in her head, trying to justify what her soul already knows. If the atmosphere turns, so does she. Because when a woman has walked through false friendships, gaslighted conversations, and charm that came with strings, she doesn't need a reason to protect herself. She just needs a shift, a flicker, a pause. And she'll trust it every time, not to escape, but to stay whole. She's not unfriendly, she's fortified. She doesn't move in crowds like she used to, doesn't accept every invitation, doesn't flinch when she says no, because now she knows the weight of what she's carrying, and she protects it like her life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. There was a time she gave everyone access. She wanted to be kind, accommodating, easy to love, so she stretched and shrank and bent herself into spaces that looked warm on the outside, but left her shivering in silence. She kept the peace, even when it cost her her voice. And still, people left. Still, she was misunderstood. Still, her presence was used, but her absence never noticed. That season broke her, but it also built her. Now she watches more than she speaks. She opens slowly, on purpose. She asks herself quietly, does this feel safe or just familiar? Because she's learned. Not everything that resembles love is love, and not everyone who wants her energy is willing to honor her presence. She doesn't call it defense anymore. She calls it design. Her heart is no longer a highway for wandering souls. It's a gate, a garden, a ground she's finally learned to cultivate and to fence off when needed. You don't walk into her life casually. You come correct, with consistency, peace, and clear intention. She doesn't broadcast her boundaries. She lives them. She doesn't argue when people misunderstand them. She blesses them from a distance. And if someone presses in too quickly, asks for too much too soon, she steps back. Not rudely, but clearly, because some people love your openness, only until you start closing the door to disrespect. She is not cold. She is clear. And clarity offends those who are counting on her confusion. C.S. Lewis once wrote that humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. But she's learned something equally vital. True humility also means refusing to let others define your worth for you. It's knowing who you are so deeply that false connections fall flat before they even reach you. She no longer feels guilty for needing space. She no longer explains her silence. She no longer attends gatherings where her spirit shrinks. Because when a woman starts protecting her peace, the world calls her distant, but heaven calls her prepared. So when you meet her, don't mistake her softness for submission. Don't mistake her quiet for weakness. And don't assume her presence means permission. Because when she guards her territory, she's not just keeping people out. She's keeping her promise to herself. Never again will I bleed just to make someone else feel whole. She doesn't slam doors. She doesn't make noise when she leaves. She just disappears, right on time. Not because she's cold, not because she's impulsive, but because she knows lingering too long can be just as dangerous as showing up too soon. She used to stay in places long past her peace. She stayed because it was familiar. She stayed because she didn't want to disappoint anyone. She stayed because she thought if she just gave a little more, it would start to feel right. It never did. And when she finally left, no one noticed the toll it took to walk away. No one noticed how many times she almost said goodbye before she finally did. Now, she doesn't second-guess the signal. When the atmosphere shifts, when the conversations turn shallow, when the joy fades and the weight rises, she listens to the quiet nudge that says, "This is no longer your place." Her exits confuse people. They don't see the storm that built up inside her. They only see the silence she left behind. And that silence makes them uncomfortable. But she's not here to manage anyone's comfort anymore. She's here to honor her alignment. She leaves before resentment poisons her voice, before burnout depletes her body, before disappointment becomes identity. Some call it quitting. She calls it preservation. Some say she's avoiding conflict. She says she's avoiding collapse, because she's not going to unravel just to stay where she's no longer respected. She doesn't always understand why she's pulled to withdraw, but she's learned to trust it. That gentle urgency, that tightness in her chest, that moment when laughter feels forced and presence feels performative. That's the signal, and she follows it like a roadmap out of the storm. She doesn't owe you an update. She doesn't need to justify her absence. She's no longer clinging to places that drain her just to feel included. When she disappears, it's not because she's lost, it's because she's been found by her own clarity. And the truth is, she was already gone before she left, already quiet in the room, already distant in the conversation, already fading in spirit before she ever took a step toward the exit. So, when she goes, she's not looking back, because what she's walking into is far more important than what she's walking away from. She's not suspicious, she's sharpened. There's a difference between being paranoid and being a woman who's been lied to, kindly. And that's what shaped her. Kind lies, soft betrayals, manipulation wrapped in affection. She's heard all the right words from all the wrong mouths. She's sat across tables, smiling politely, while her intuition screamed beneath the surface. And she stayed. Too long, too quiet, too gracious, until one day, she didn't. Now she doesn't just listen to what people say, she listens to what they don't. She watches how they change when she sets a boundary, how they shift when she doesn't give them access. Some people don't lie with their words. They lie with their consistency, with their presence that fades when they don't get what they want. She's learned to stop explaining what her clarity detects. If something feels heavy before it even begins, she leaves it where it stands. She doesn't take people at face value anymore. She takes them at their pattern. They say she's too guarded, that she's hard to read, but they don't realize she used to be an open book in the wrong library. She's not judging people. She's protecting herself from having to recover from things her intuition already warned her about. She doesn't make accusations, she makes exits, and while others wonder what happened, she's already reclaimed her peace. Because charm fades. Words fade, but energy never lies. And she's not reading promises anymore. She's reading the room. She'll nod, she'll smile, but inside, she's already made her decision. And if the atmosphere around someone feels off, she won't wait for the mask to slip. She'll walk before the damage begins. This isn't harshness. It's clarity earned by fire. And now, she protects herself, not out of fear, but out of reverence for how long it took her to rebuild what others casually broke. She used to swing at everything, every lie, every misunderstanding, every whisper behind her back. She thought defending herself meant survival, but it only left her drained and misunderstood anyway. Now, she chooses her battles because she's realized most of them are traps. Some people don't want the truth. They want your reaction. They want you out of position. They want your fire so they can watch you burn. She's seen what happens when she gives too much to the wrong conflict. It steals her clarity. It stains her peace. It distracts her from what really matters. So now, she steps back. She breathes. She listens. If it's not hers to carry, she doesn't pick it up. She doesn't respond to every opinion. She doesn't clarify every detail. Because she knows energy is expensive and peace is priceless. She lets her presence speak. And when that's not enough, she lets silence speak louder. They say she's indifferent. They're wrong. She's disciplined. She's not passive. She's precise. Now she fights with focus. She picks her timing with care. And most of the time, she walks away, not because she's weak, but because she knows there's nothing on the other side of that argument worth losing herself over. Her silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. And in that silence, she keeps her edge, her vision, her dignity. She doesn't need to prove her power. She preserves it. And that's why she wins battles you never even saw her fight. There is a kind of silence that isn't empty. It's powerful. It's protective. And she carries it. She used to crave answers, used to fear the unknown. Every delay felt like punishment. Every storm felt personal. But the longer she walked through life, the more she discovered peace isn't the absence of trouble. It's the presence of anchoring. She's been through things that should have rattled her to the core. She's been ghosted, misunderstood, pushed to the side, and counted out. But she didn't fold. She got quiet. She got clear. And she found a rhythm that no storm could throw off. Now, when chaos shows up, she doesn't meet it with panic. She meets it with pause. Not because she doesn't feel the tension, but because she knows who she is within it. She's learned to breathe through what others break under. She's learned to smile when others expect her to fall apart. That's not detachment. That's development. She has stopped chasing people who don't value her, stopped over-explaining her softness, stopped apologizing for her silence. Because what looks like stillness on the outside is warfare on the inside. Stillness is where she regains her direction, where she hears what the noise drowned out, where her boundaries sharpen, where her wisdom grows. She no longer runs from tension. She reads it. She no longer overreacts. She redirects. When the storm rises, she doesn't mirror it. She becomes the eye of it. C.S. Lewis once said, "Relying on God has to begin all over again every day as if nothing had yet been done." That's what her peace is. A daily choice, a quiet battle, a steady returning to the calm she fought so long to build. Now she doesn't need every answer. She just needs alignment. She doesn't need everyone to understand. She just needs her soul to be still. She lets others be loud. She lets the world run itself in circles. She walks slowly, carefully, rooted, because what covers her is deeper than protection. It's presence. They say she's unshaken. They're right. But not because life has been kind, because she learned to be kind to herself, even when life wasn't. There was a time she clung to things that were already collapsing. She held on to relationships that only loved her when she stayed quiet. She held on to habits that comforted her but never grew her. She held on to identities she'd outgrown because letting go felt too much like failure. But not anymore. Now, she releases quickly, cleanly, completely. She doesn't drag the dead into her next season. She buries it with dignity and walks away with lightness. Letting go used to feel like loss. Now, it feels like clarity. She no longer waits for someone to prove they don't deserve her. She no longer begs for closure that never comes. She doesn't force the door to stay open when she knows God's already locked it. There's a freedom in her walk now, not because life is easier, but because she no longer fights what was only sent to teach her. She doesn't resent the lesson, she just refuses to repeat it. Some say she's quick to cut people off, but what they don't know is how long she held on before the cut came. They didn't see the nights she prayed for it to work, the compromises she made, the patience she extended beyond reason. She's not angry, she's aligned. And when she walks away now, she's not walking out of emotion. She's walking in obedience to her own knowing. She's left behind friendships that grew roots in competition, jobs that praised her performance but dismissed her worth, rooms that wanted her presence but not her truth. And every time she let go, something in her rose. Letting go is no longer hard, it's holy. She knows who she is now. She knows what she carries. She knows what cannot come with her into what's next. So when she turns the page, she doesn't reread the chapter. She thanks it and moves forward. Because the woman who is covered doesn't cling to what can't keep her whole. She doesn't glow because life has been kind. She shines because darkness couldn't keep her dim. She is who she is not because the path was easy, but because she was covered when it got hard. Not every scar is visible. Not every miracle is loud. But the fact that she's still standing, that's the proof. She is not fearless, she is fortified. And every unseen battle heaven won on her behalf is why the enemy still can't find a way in. So if you see even a trace of her story in yours, know this: you are not overlooked. You are not unguarded. You are not alone. You are covered. You are chosen. And heaven fights for you, even when you don't see it happening. Because being protected by God doesn't always look like power. Sometimes it looks like peace. And sometimes the greatest miracle is what never reached you.